So welcome to the crash course of CUET PG Psychology. And as I explained earlier, these are the first 3 units and we are not going to segregate it. We are going to study it together. Okay. So let's first decode what topics exactly come in each unit. So the first unit is your introduction to psychology, in which we mainly study the definition of psychology, your nature and scope, goals of psychology, and basic perspectives that we have in psychology. Okay. Apart from that, what are the type of psychologists, psychiatrists, their work settings, everything. Okay. So this is basically the introduction to just what psychology is. Okay. And then how actually psychology came to being. So the history of psychology is your second unit, where we study your philosophers, your Greek philosophers and your British philosophers. Mainly, we also study the mind and body debate, your monist and dualist, okay, and then the methodology, which is your rationalism versus empiricism. So this is what we study in your history of psychology. And then we all know School of Psychology. We've been studying it since 11th if you had it. And if you have it in bachelor's, then I mean, whole psychology is based on School of Psychology, right? The thought of every psychology behind the school. So basically, we'll study structuralism, functionalism, behaviorism, gestalt psychology, psychoanalysis, every psychological school that have been established till now. We'll not study Indian psychology since it is not your part of your CUET PG. So we're not going to study that. Okay, so I've analyzed your CUET PG previous year papers from 2021 to 2025, and as you can see, the goals of psychology that have been coming in 2021 and 2025, and 2 questions alone was on goals of psychology in your previous year paper. Okay, then your philosophers. So philosophers have been coming in almost 4 years, right? And since School of Psychology is obviously in itself like a whole different unit, so there have to be questions on School of Psychology. So we are going to cover School of Psychology as well in this crash course. So the 4 topics that we are going to cover is your philosophers, goals of psychology, your definition of psychology, philosophers, and School of Psychology. Got it? So let's start with the definition of psychology. So when I say psychology, what do you think? Where did it come from? It actually came from these 2 branches, which is a philosophy and physiology. Now, when I say philosophy, what does that mean? Philosophy is basically all your big questions, like when I say, who are you? And you start questioning, who am I? My name cannot simply be my identity, right? What is right and wrong? Or what else? What is this? What is the meaning of this life? So all the big questions that you want to uncover. Okay, what is my purpose? All of these questions. Whereas physiology is basically how your body works in very layman terms. आपकी body work कैसे करती है? Okay, so आपके जो भी organs है, how does the heart pump the blood? Where does this blood go? How your body get energy? Everything. This is physiology. Basically, your biological component of psychology. So these 2 branches came together and became psychology. In very ancient times, psychology basically meant that your psyche, which is your soul or the mind, and logy basically means the study or the account. So in ancient times, in Greek times, what we used to say is that psychology is the study of soul. But do we have any evidence of the existence of soul? We do not, right? So this definition came from where? It came from philosophy. But the thing is, since we do not have any evidence of soul, and the ultimate goal was that it should be scientific, right? Psychology is science. So later on, the definition changed. And in present times, what we actually define psychology is that psychology is a scientific study of human behavior and mental processes. Okay? So psychology क्या है? एक scientific study है. किस-किसकी? Human behavior की and your mental processes. So कितने components है इसमें? There are 3 components. Scientific study, one component. Second is your human behavior, and third is your mental processes. Now, when I say scientific study, what does that mean? Scientific study basically means that it has some systematic order that we have to follow. So, for example, let's say I want to study stress among students before your CUET PG exam. Okay, so what would I do? I'll first create a research problem, right? I'll find the research problem and create a statement, right? Then what will I do? Then I'll do literature review. Then I'll create hypotheses. Then I'll collect data. So what is it? I'm going through steps, right? I cannot jump from research problem to collecting data. No, I have to do literature review. I have to find gaps. So it is systematic, right? So that is what scientific study is. Then human behavior, whatever that is observable or overt. Okay. So for example, some of you might be taking notes right now. So that notes, what is it? That is an observable behavior, right? If you are sitting in a class and you look at your friend and he yawns, you know that he's yawning. That means the class must be boring or he might have not slept the previous night, right? So what are those? These are observable behavior. I can observe it through my eyes. Whereas mental processes is covert. Okay, I cannot observe this. So for example, your anxiousness, your thoughts, thoughts before exams. Until and unless you don't tell me what your thoughts are, will I be able to know what you are thinking right now? I cannot, right? So these are all covert. So your mental processes is your covert component. Your human behavior is your observable or overt component. And scientific study is basically the systematic order, right? Scientific also means that it should be empirical, that I should have an observable data, right? When I do my experiments, when I do my research, I have data. On basis of that data, whatever I've observed through that data, only then I can prove or reject my hypotheses, right? I can accept or reject my hypotheses, right? What are all those? Those are my scientific studies. So psychology is a scientific study of human behavior and processes of mental activities. Okay. So that is the scientific definition. And there have been questions from definition of psychology as well. So let's do an MCQ. Comment, okay? Comment me the answer, and I'll address this question in the next video, in which I'll be explaining you the philosophers. Okay, we'll be doing your dualist and your monist debate. Apart from that, we'll also be doing your Hippocrates, your Galen, and everything. Okay, we'll cover all of the philosophers that have been coming in your exams and is important in psychological context. So pause the video, answer it in the comment, and I'll address it in the next video. So stay tuned and subscribe to this playlist as well, because I'll be updating everything in this playlist only. Bye.